Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday Night Live podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 5. I'm your host, Joe, and we've also got Toby on the line as well. And in today's podcast, we are going to be chatting about the F1 2018 season. We're going to be doing a full season review. If you remember, back in Season 1, we did a season preview. That's what Toby's up to right now. He's trying to find our original predictions from the 2018 season, and we'll see who got closer to their predictions. I think we already probably know the answer to that, but, we'll see. But hopefully you're all good, and hopefully Toby looks even younger according to Bellix. You know, he's Benjamin Button, Toby. He looks younger all the time. Okay, gets younger, I guess. Hello to Aaron Hudson. He's saying hello to Aaron Hart. Not sure I can see Aaron Hart in the chat, but anyway, he's saying hello to him anyway. Hello, Aaron. Hopefully you're okay tonight. And Bellix says Toby looks younger. I think he looks younger every single day. Lucas Malice, hello there. Good to have you with us. We will be talking about the full F1 2018 season, and I'm really looking forward to it, actually, having a chat with Toby about his thoughts about it. We'll be going all the way back to probably even pre-season testing. We'll have a little chat about that, and then we'll delve into the Australian Grand Prix and see what path the season took. And obviously it concluded with Lewis Hamilton winning it at the weekend in Mexico, with a bit of a lackluster Mercedes performance, to be honest with you. You know, the high altitude track seemed to catch everyone out except Red Bull, really. So Red Bull dominated the weekend, and then Ferrari ran them close-ish, but Mercedes well off the pace. But Lewis Hamilton only needed to finish 7th, finished 4th, and with it gets his 5th world title. So absolutely brilliant from Hamilton, and he matches Fangio, and only Schumacher has got more titles than him. I don't know how Toby's getting along with his
I'm getting
research.
There. I'm getting there. I found 2 drivers so far, so...
Well, there you go.
Actually, no, I found 4, so I'm nearly there.
Well, there you go. He's found 4. He's a 5th of the way there. So I'll keep rambling while he's doing his research, and we can have a nice little chat before we get into the season review. Apparently Aaron Hart was on earlier. I can't see that on the chat, but hopefully he's alright, and hopefully he'll be back at some point. Hello to Hayden Bell. Probably something to do with Verstappen. Exactly. Bellix, you know, it's always to do with Verstappen when it comes to Toby. You know, Verstappen super fan over there. Although he did tweet out against his against Jos Verstappen before. He was very critical of him, telling him to butt out basically. But obviously Daniel Ricciardo got the pole position, and apparently that caused a bit of, I don't know, petulance is the best way to describe it with Verstappen, and didn't like Ricciardo's exuberant celebrations. But, you know, if you hadn't had a pole position since Monaco, then you would probably be really happy too, and beating your teammate that's been thrashing you all weekend, yeah. In 250 years in the future, can you look at English lower leagues? Yeah, I do actually plan on adding them in, since you suggested that. I will add them in, and we can have a look at how the lower leagues have changed. Although I don't think they've changed that much, because the Premier League hasn't changed that much. But we will have a look at that in
up to 6
due
now.
course. Oh, he's up to 6. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm running out of material here. I need Tom Mayhew in the chat so that he can start entertaining everybody with his comedy. But we've got 5 people in the stream at the moment. 5 likes, which is what we like to see. Viewers equals likes, you know. That's the perfect way to do YouTube. Goodness me, if I had a like for every view I had on me Tennis World Tour first look and review, I think I'd be a millionaire right now. But anyway, I honestly thought Vettel would put up a better fight. I mean, I just don't think people understand how far Mercedes have come this season, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit later on. I think Mercedes absolutely blew them out of the water in the sort of flyaway season from Singapore Oh, what's he laughing at?
I made a bigger mistake.
Oh, what's going on?
You know, I put McLaren second.
Yeah.
I put Gasly 18th.
Well, that's not that wrong, is it?
Well, we'll find out.
So yeah, if you have just joined, Toby's trying to locate our original predictions, and because we're not professional and all that, we didn't do this beforehand until 5 minutes before. So, live with it, basically. But yeah, do me research now. Gasly's actually 14th in the championship, so you didn't do too badly. Although I think you had Brendan Hartley to finish above him. Yeah, Toby is a bit choppy. I think he's downloading Fallout for his sister, is what I've heard. So that's probably why. There's not a great deal I can do about that. That's the, I guess, downside of doing it live. We rely on an internet connection, so but it'll be absolutely fine, I'm sure. And hopefully I'm not too choppy. But 8 people watching now. So Toby, hurry up with your research. We need to get into this F1 season review. Please let me know in the chat what you think of the podcast. We'll do a little bit. It's that kind of Wi-Fi connection. I know. Yeah, exactly. Let me know what you think of the podcast so far in season 2. Do you prefer it to season 1? Oh, I can hear.
Well, we've got 12 now. We've got
12. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. Over halfway.
I've only been fine.
Well, that's fine. Don't worry about doing mine, Toby. Honestly, we'll just laugh at you because I think mine were pretty similar to the way the championship looks right now. Toby, where did you buy your PC from? Is he going to answer? No, he's not even listening. Hello, Jack Watson in the chat. How are you doing? I don't know. Toby, did you buy your computer from Curry's? I don't know why he's laughing. Oh, I think he's found an awful F1 prediction. John off the market by the looks of it. Oh, that's fantastic. He bought his internet from them. Hello to Nathan Carrick in the chat. A Shields lad, I believe, Nathan Carrick. Or at least he was asking how I got Shields into the game. And the answer is, Shields got promoted in my game. So if anybody wants to know the reason why I'm managing South Shields in the Journeyman at the moment, that is why. So yeah. Looking at the Drivers' Championship, if you like, Alonso is still clinging on to a top 10 position there, and I'm pretty sure both of us predicted him to be quite a bit higher than that in our driver predictions. And he's not going to be in the top 10 by the end of the season. He's had an awful amount of retirements recently. It's quite sad to see that his F1 career is going to come to an end in this manner. Bellex, how's Rachel? Thank you for the question. She's okay, I think. She's at uni. Hating it as much as anybody else does, I'm pretty sure. Hayden Bell's a Shields lad. Good to see. Good to hear as well. Doing one for the Shields boys. Oh, unless you're a North Shields lad, of course, then that's not acceptable, basically. So, how are you getting on, Toby? What we at? I think Toby's dead. And Toby's not even listening to us now. I think he's actually muted us because he's not even looking at the camera while I'm talking to him, which is amazing. Look, I'm looking at him right now and he's not talking to us. She's okay, you think, true love? Well, I haven't spoken to her today, so, well, much. No, she's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Tues up here at the weekend. Somebody actually saw us out and about in Sunderland. I went to see the Sunderland Lights over the weekend, or Sunderland Illuminations, I guess. A bit of a knockoff of the Blackpool Illuminations. But, here's Toby.
I'm officially back now. I've got 6 to fill in, but I can sort of figure out where the gaps are.
Yeah, okay. For both of us, or just you?
Just for me.
Okay.
And there's some quite funny predictions in there.
Oh, I know. I can't wait for this. You thought Signs would beat Hulkenberg, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rick. Have you got a rough idea of what yours are?
Ish, yeah.
I think I remember hearing a few things, so I'll sure tell you if you're wrong on some things. 17th.
I definitely predicted the Haas cars to finish outside the top 10.
Yeah, you put Grosjean 13th, Magnussen 14th.
Which isn't far wrong, to be honest with you. But, maybe with Magnussen, but...
You've just been waffling on for 10 minutes.
Basically. I was actually trying to have a chat with you, but then, You
realised all there.
Yeah. So, yeah. Say hello, Toby, to everyone.
Yes, apologies, folks. Hello. We suddenly had a panic about 3 minutes before the stream. He said, Mr. Hamard said, have you got the results from last year? Not the results, but the constructors and drivers' market opinions? No.
Well, I thought I had it saved as well, but apparently not.
Right, so before going through the season, shall we go through what we thought and what's actually happened?
Hold on, say it again.
Have a look at this. So as in first, we'll look at what we predicted and what, compared to what's actually happened.
Yeah.
And then we'll break down the season. So, we'll start at the top, shall we? We both went Hamilton first, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right,
easily.
Okay. Who did you go with second?
I think I went Vettel.
Right, so you got that one right. This is where mine starts to tail off. I said Bottas second.
Yeah. I said Bottas fifth, I think. So.
He's fourth at the moment, but to be fair, could be fifth by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Third? Who'd you put third?
Third, either Alonso. No, I think I went Ricciardo. Ricciardo, Verstappen. Third and fourth.
So you're a bit off there because Verstappen's fifth and Ricciardo's sixth. But not as far off as I was with Alonso in third. And Alonso's 10th at the moment. Verstappen fourth for me, one off. Ricciardo fifth again, one off. And surprisingly, I underpredicted Kimi. I said Kimi would be sixth.
Yeah. I think I said Kimi sixth as well, and then I probably went Alonso seventh, Hulkenberg eighth, I reckon.
Well, I went with a slightly different combination of seventh and eighth. Vettel in seventh, and Van Dorn in eighth.
Yeah, I said Van Dorn 12th. I remember that one explicitly because you went off it at us for saying Van Dorn 12th. You were like, oh, Van Dorn's going to smash it this season. And,
hold on, we'll talk about Van Dorn later. Never mind creasing him at the moment. We can crease Bottas, but we're not going to crease Van Dorn. Ninth, I went for Sainz. 3 off, not too bad.
Yeah, I probably went Sainz after I think I had Sainz out the top 10. I think I put Perez in there and probably Ocon as well. I probably went in the top 10. So
I've only got 2 people in the right place. Ericsson and Hamilton. So I went with Perez 10th, 8th, so not too far off. Grosjean 11th, 13th, again, not too far off. I'll just run through mine, then you can run through yours. Ocon 12th, only one off. Magnussen 13th, I only predicted Magnussen. I said Grosjean would beat him, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Hulkenberg 14th, again, he's been lucky, of course, this year, so he's 7th.
Of course he has.
Hartley 15th, and he's 19th. Leclerc 16th, 15th, so decent prediction there. Ericsson bang on in 17th. Gasly 18th, and he's actually 14th. Sirotkin 19th, and he's last, and Stroll in 20th, and well done, Stroll is in 18th. Brilliant for him. In terms of constructors, I've got the bottom three to a T with Sabaton, Rosso and Williams. Mercedes at the top. Of course, McLaren aren't quite second, fair enough. Red Bull third, Ferrari fourth, they're not there second. Force India, bit of a grey area. But fifth, I think that was a fair prediction.
I think technically Force India are fourth. If you add on their points that were took off.
Probably, yeah. So Renault sixth, again, unpredicted that one a little bit. Haas seventh, but they're fifth. And then, as I say, all the rest are right. So, not my best year predictions, but is there anything that you predicted and got Bob on?
Well, Hamilton, Vettel, I got Bob on. I think... Grosjean, predicted 13th, I think you said before. And then, I don't know, towards the back, I think I probably predicted Hartley to finish 20th, and then Sorokin 19th, and stuff like that. It's very difficult to tell. I think on the whole, though, my predictions were a lot closer than Toby's. He had Hulkenberg down in 14th. I think I had him in 8th with Alonso 7th. Constructors wise, I had Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull. I think I had Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Renault. And then I did actually predict Force India to drop off a little bit, but again, it's artificial simply because Force India have had their points taken off them this week, even into Rob Ponton, by the way. I don't think either of us would have. Maybe we did. Did we predict Williams to be the
We did, yeah.
Back mark? Okay, fair enough. I guess we probably realised they had a terrible car and a terrible driver lineup, but I don't think anybody could have predicted they would only have 7 points when 9th place Toro Rosso have 33. So that's But anyway, our predictions. We'll definitely keep note of them next season, and have a proper side-by-side comparison when we. I don't know, do this podcast again in a year when Lewis Hamilton is a 6-time world champion.
Yeah, keep that zipped. Yeah, all right, keep it zipped.
But anyway, shall we get on with reviewing the season and sort of talking through the story of it? Obviously, over the winter there wasn't many driver changes. Probably the biggest one being. I guess Sainz to Renault is the biggest one. Apart from that, not a lot happened at all. I guess Leclerc at Sauber is the only other big one, really.
I think it'd be good for this driver by driver, actually.
Yeah. So should we start at the bottom, if you like?
Yeah.
Sergei Sorokin, thoughts on his first season in Formula One?
I think, to be honest, it's a bit harsh in being in last. He's outperformed Stroll throughout the season, there's no two ways about it. He's beaten Stroll in the qualifying game. It's just that, a little bit like last season, Stroll's got lucky on a few occasions. If we look at the points, he finished 8th in Baku, again, a bit of luck, and he finished 9th in, is that Italy? Italy, yeah, but there were, 3 retirements, and even Sorokin got, well, I say even Sorokin, but both cars got in the points that race, that's my point. It was, very banterous, that. But yeah, I think he's had a decent first season. If you look at the results, they've been half decent, and unfortunately, it's a little bit like the whole backmarker situation when it was Caterham, Manor, and HRT. Mm-hmm. You can only really compare them to their teammates because they're that far off, and I think Sorokin's done a better job. On most weekends, he's been quicker. And he's just been a bit unfortunate sometimes. I mean, race by race, I look at most races he's beaten Stroll, barring the odd one.
Yeah,
maybe a position ahead or something like that, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But it's not really much. Margins are margins, but I think that he's had a decent season, to be fair.
Yeah, I can't really think of any mistakes that he's made this year. Massive ones, Where Stroll's binned it a few times. Yeah. Sorokin got his first points in Italy, of course, with that 10th place. But I mean, he's done nothing wrong, but he's done nothing to say to me that he's going to be around in Formula One for however many years. So yeah, I don't know whether he'll be in Formula One next year. Perhaps he will.
He won't.
But yeah, it's not looking likely. Certainly not with Williams anyway. But Sergei Sorokin currently in 20th with 1 point, probably going to stay the same unless something crazy happens between now and the end of the season. So Sorokin 20th. Moving on to Brendan Hartley, the New Zealander. And I know you've got a soft spot for Brendan Hartley, so why don't you take it away?
Well, I said at the start of the season that Gasly would have a disaster and that Hartley would beat him. It's not quite the way it's gone.
No.
But to be fair, I do think that, I know it's saying daft, but Gasly should be beating Hartley. If you're comparing, Gasly to a youngster who's supposed to be on par with the likes of your Verstappen, your Sainz's, is Hartley going to be on par with that? I'm not too sure, but I don't think he's disgraced himself.
No,
Again,
I think he's been a lot better in the second half of the season than he was the first.
Again, he's not made any terrible errors that I can think of.
Not that I can think of, no.
But I think he's just a decent driver. He's done all right. He's not done anything marvellous. I think that big results like the Bahrain race helped Gasly potentially to be where he's in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Wikipedia page, Gasly's had quite a big drop off since Hungary, really. So, Gasly strikes me as a bit of a Perez in terms of a couple of good results for him has really propelled his position in the championship. So yeah, but Brendan Hartley, first full season in F1, chances of him getting retained by Toro Rosso for next year?
I think they'll keep him now.
You reckon? Yeah.
I don't see them bringing 2 new drivers in. I don't see that. I don't really think that anybody's particularly out there. There's Dan Tickton, there's a few other drivers, but I don't think they're going to take the... the audio quality's a bit iffy because for some reason... Well, I've turned it off now, but I was downloading the game for somebody else, as you can tell, but hopefully it should be a bit better in a minute. But
I mean, we can always stop the call and ring you up again if you think that might help.
We can. Let me just finish a report about Hartley, and then you can have a chat, and then we can sort that out.
Yeah.
What was I saying now? I don't think they'll bring 2 new drivers in. I don't really see it. And I think Hartley's done a good job. I think he's done what's expected of him. And I think the Toro Rosso team's a bit redundant now for what it was first made for.
Mm-hmm. I think Red Bull have made it redundant by their high turnover of drivers.
They have, but it was always going to happen. I mean, there's only two seats in that team, in the Red Bull team. So it was always going to happen. And now, particularly because they've got 2 youngsters in the team, it's not going to happen. But no, I don't think they'll change him. So I'll end the call and let you have a quick chat, and then I'll ring you back straight away.
Okay, right. So Toby is going for a little bit. He's back straight away. Look at that. He really meant it.
Hello.
There we go. That's a lot better. That is a lot better. It's like Joe is talking to someone from the 60s. It's listenable. But hopefully that should be a lot better. So Tom can let us know. We needed you in the chat before, Tom, because we needed your comedy because I ran out of material basically. So scroll back to the start if you want to know what all that's about. But so we've talked about the bottom 2 drivers. Let's move on to Lance Stroll then. Your favourite driver in 18th place with 6 points. And again, you would say another driver that's benefited from a little bit of luck in terms of his point score and positions, except Italy, where Williams seemed to genuinely have a little bit of pace around there. Obviously, the 8th place in Baku gives him 4 points, but even so, I think he's had a really poor season, and I think it's really sad that he's going to be on the grid for another year and probably many years to come.
Well.
Yeah. I think next year is a big test for him. If he goes to Force India and does the same as what he's been doing at Williams, then surely he's got to be out. But if he goes in there and does a better job than Ocon, then we're all, shocked, to say the least.
I very much doubt it, but weirder things have happened. I just think that he's not F1 material. I think he's the poorest driver on the grid.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I just don't think he's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, he's benefited from a few lucky results. And it shows. Sorokin's beating this year, and I'm not saying Sorokin is a crap benchmark.
But he's not Felipe Massa, is he?
Exactly. I think last year, as you say, Stroll benefited from that. Well, he's against Massa. Well, he's against Sorokin, a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And fair enough, he's beat him on points, but Sorokin still beat him, I think, in a genuine way. So
yeah, I'd be interested to see the qualifying for that, actually.
I think Sorokin's already beat him. He beat him by about Japan.
Okay. So yeah, Lance Stroll 18th in the championship for Williams. So moving up, we've got Marcus Ericsson, the dependable Swede who's been around for more years than you'd probably think. He's been around since 2014, I believe, with Caterham, and has been with Sauber ever since 2015. Yeah. And this year, I think he's actually acquitted himself quite well. I think he's done very, very well against a big personality, really, in the world of F1, which is Leclerc, who's come in and everybody's so hyped about him and whatever. And Ericsson's just gone on about his business, and he's actually scored, he's only scored 9 points, but he's had 6 points finishes, which is great, I think. That's really cool.
He has. He's had a good season, and I think it's nice because it's actually the first time and the last time I think that Ericsson will have a good car in F1. I'm going to try and talk about Ericsson without talking about Leclerc, which is very hard to do. So I'm going to choose my words very carefully. I think that Sauber's a good car, but for Ericsson to score 9 points, it's still a good thing to do. Fair enough to him. He's only had 2 retirements this year. Again, he's had quite a stable season. Hasn't been crashing it about or anything. And in the grand scheme of things, he's quite an experienced F1 driver now.
Mm.
If you think about it, he's got more experience than those around him, up to Grosjean in the standings in terms of Gasly, Leclerc, Van Dorn, Stroll, and Sorokin.
Even Magnussen.
Yeah, even Magnussen, which is amazing, really. Yeah. Was Magnussen out for a year? He was.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, well, he has, yeah. But, yeah. He's done well, but not really much more to add until we get on to Charlie later on.
Yeah, so, looking at his results over the season, he's also had 3 11th placed finishes, and he's not, when he's, reached the checkered flag, he's not finished lower than 16th, which I think is not too bad. Obviously, that depends on how many retirements and stuff there was in a Grand Prix, but I think he's done all right this season, and it'll be sad to see him go next season. Obviously, he's dropping down to the third driver role at Sauber next season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
That's not really going to happen because today he's going to IndyCar.
Okay.
Signed a deal to get to IndyCar, which is lovely.
Well done, Ericsson, and hopefully he can make something out of that, and he'll probably end up in Formula E in a couple of years. So, a certain somebody who we're going to talk about now, Stoffel Van Dorn. 16th in the championship. Toby obviously predicted him to be 8th. I predicted him to be 12th. We were both wrong. The Belgian got off to a good start. 3 points finishes out of 4. 9th, 8th, and 9th. And a 13th as well. you'll be surprised how good a start of the season McLaren made. If you look up at Fernando Alonso, then you know that McLaren car was okay at the start of the season. I'm telling you. But then he had an absolutely horrific spell from Spain all the way until the USA, where he didn't score any points, was incredibly slow, and he got dropped from McLaren, and deservedly so. I think the last 2 years he hasn't really done anything to suggest he'll ever be a front-running driver to me. I'm not saying he's the worst driver on the grid, but F1 is a brutal sport, and Van Dorn has had 2 seasons at it. He's not... I don't know. He's not been outstanding, and I guess that's why he's on his way, and he's off to Formula E next year with Gary Paffett, I think, isn't it? Is his teammate, who must be about 906 now, because I'm pretty sure he was a McLaren test driver in the mid-2000s, so how on earth he is still going, I don't know. But then again, Jarno Trulli and Villeneuve were in Formula E at about 44, so, anyway.
Jackie Stewart's driving it this year, apparently.
You are?
Jackie Stewart's driving it this year.
Wouldn't surprise us. Anyway, thoughts on Stoffel Van Dorn? I know you're a fan of Stoff, so...
Correct. It's very tough for me to listen through that without shedding a tear. He's a victim of 2 things. He's a victim of, having you just said, a brutal sport. He's also a victim of having the goat as his teammate. That's a statement within itself, isn't it?
Ooh.
I was going to say Stroll Van Dorn. Stoffel. Where do we start with Stoffel? Stoffel Van Dorn. I'm not looking to the camera because I don't really believe what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it. Van Dorn is one of the best drivers on the grid. In the head. He's just the victim of an absolutely awful car. I mean, if he'd have had... I'd have personally liked to have seen Lando Norris in that car, because Lando Norris would not have done any better than Stoffel Van Dorn.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen it in a couple of races towards the end.
You could argue potentially Sainz might not have done it any better. I just think that he's a victim of... And the points gap, as you say, is purely because of a good start for Alonso at the start of the season. I know that Alonso's dominated him in many races, but I get the whole thing about how you've got to come in straight away, like the likes of Leclerc, Gasly, Verstappen, hence why they're going to be 3 of the front runners next year, and come in and prove yourself straight away. I get that. But if you haven't got the car to do it, which, may I comment, that Leclerc, Gasly, Verstappen, Hamilton all had when they started their career.
Vettel.
Well, to a degree, but I think the likes of Hamilton and Verstappen more so. I think that Toro Rosso was a lot better when Verstappen and Gasly was in it than when Vettel was in it, even though Vettel won a race in it, which is quite funny. But I do feel immensely sorry for Van Dorn, because I do think that I get why they've dropped him, but it would have been nice to see him there for another season with Sainz. And I don't like talking about this, but it just stinks of what's the word? Oh, for Christ's sake, contradiction from McLaren. The fact that they promoted Van Dorn so quickly when Button was out of the team, if you remember. They promoted Van Dorn because they wanted to get this youth project prospect in, and they're doing exactly the same now with Norris. And I feel like, that they could have ruined Magnussen's career. They've definitely ruined Van Dorn's career. He's not going back to F1. The same could happen with Norris. So, you could argue Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, he's had 2 good cars in that Renault and Toro Rosso. If he doesn't perform all of a sudden next year, it's a very changing market all of a sudden. And Sainz will just be forgotten. So, I do feel it's a real shame about Van Dorn, but I completely get why McLaren have dropped him. But on a personal level, I'm really gutted for him.
Yeah, I'd like to have seen him have another season as well, but when you're this far off the pace of somebody, I don't care who your teammate is, it's, you need two drivers in there that are going to maximise the car at the end of the day. And, I'm sure we'll talk about that later with Bottas and perhaps even Raikkonen. Van Dorn hasn't been up to scratch. He hasn't maximised the amount of points that McLaren could have had. I mean, Alonso was getting 5th and 7th earlier in the season. If Van Dorn was doing that, McLaren might have even been in the battle for 4th this season, just because of their early pace. But it wasn't to be, and Van Dorn will be in Formula E next year, and it's a good place for him to have some success in motorsport, because I'm not entirely sure how he would have ever got to a championship winning car in F1 unless McLaren produced one, because it's like anyone at McLaren, really. I don't see the link up to Mercedes, Ferrari or Red Bull, unless you've already got that reputation, a bit like Alonso or a Sainz, for example. But enough about Stoffel Van Dorn. We'll talk about your next favourite driver, Charles Leclerc, in 15th place, which is a lot lower than people might think, the amount of hype that he's had this season. But I don't know, a solid first season for a rookie. 27 points so far. Top place finish of 6th. And, he has been solid. He's been regularly scoring points, regularly in Q3. But is there more to the story, Toby?
I love how you introduced that. Because I really don't want you to introduce me and then I'll go, well, crap. I hate to be the negative one here because there's a hell of a lot of hype about Leclerc. But I keep saying that Sauber car is a lot better than people think. That degrades Ericsson a lot. I know that degrades Ericsson a lot. But I do think that Sauber car is a hell of a lot better than people think.
Well, if you look at Ericsson's results over the last few years, it would suggest that the Sauber car has took a massive step up. More on its sort of 2015 level of performance than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. He's one of these, he's a little bit like Perez, when he takes his chances when they've been given to him. Obviously, Baku finished 6th. He's had a few 7th place finishes. In some races, he's been fantastic. He's always there and thereabouts, but he's... At some circuits, that Sauber can finish 7th. It's not like it's a massive overachievement.
It's not a Jules Bianchi finishing 9th, is it?
Exactly, yeah. That's a really good way to sum it up. If you look at the last race in Mexico, we had Ricciardo go out, so it would have been an 8th. We had Perez go out, again, that's 9th. Sainz, that potentially would have been 10th. That sort of takes that result. I mean, to be fair, in Russia you can't say the same, because the only driver who retired was Hartley and Gasly. So we can't say the same about that one. But obviously in Azerbaijan, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Verstappen all went out the race. So he's benefited from a lot of people retiring, fair play to him, as Perez did in the same race, finishing 3rd in Baku. But
and Stroll did, finishing 8th.
Yeah, I don't. Stroll's not a driver. We don't talk about him. It'll be interesting. It's a big year. I think it's a big year overall for F1 next year. We'll talk about this a little bit now because it's a nice opportunity. There's a lot of questions to be asked and answered. 1, is Leclerc up to the test? 2, are Honda going to be good enough for Red Bull? Are they going to get the gap between Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull? I'm not going to answer the questions now because I don't think they can be answered at all. I wouldn't even hazard a guess. Are McLaren going to be any good? Because I always believe in this moment that the day Fernando Alonso leaves, that car will get better.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's going to happen. Will Williams even survive? That's a controversial one. Anything? Will Vettel retire at the end of next year?
Ooh,
and
that's a new one.
And how long will it be till Bottas gets replaced by Ocon? They're my 5 questions. We're not going to answer them now. You like my one about Vettel, don't you?
Oh, I do. I think also Hamilton could be a good question as well. I think if Hamilton doesn't win the championship next year, he may well retire. I think if he wins it next year, then he's going to keep going until he breaks Schumacher's record or gets a slow car.
Correct. We can talk about that one a little bit later, though.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of fuel to the fire to add for that one. So, next up, Pierre Gasly. Very similar to Leclerc. He's had a very solid season. Benefited from that really strong weekend that Toro Rosso's had in Bahrain, finishing fourth. But ever since then, he's had a few decent finishes. And I think, as you've already said, he's tailed off a lot since Hungary. But bear in mind that Toro Rosso haven't had an upgrade. In fact, I had an upgrade at the Mexican Grand Prix. But ever since the Spanish Grand Prix, they didn't have an upgrade. So that's what I say. The Sauber is better than that Toro Rosso, McLaren, and Williams at least. Some weekends it's better than the Haas, some it's better than the Force India. That's the way it goes. But Gasly's had a very good season. I like Pierre Gasly. I think he's very much I know they're both French, but he's very much like Ocon. He takes it all in his stride. He seems to be a good driver, mind you. Apparently Ocon and Gasly hate each other for some unknown reason. But again, a good solid season. Not really much to report. He's just done well in his debut, which is really nice to see. I predicted he wouldn't do too well, but he's done well, which is nice.
Yeah, I can't really say much more than that. Gasly's picked up where he left off at the end of last season. He did all right in the few races that he did, and he's proved himself, I guess, at Toro Rosso, but it screams a Danny Kvyat at me that he's getting promoted to Red Bull so soon. But there's just something a little bit more about Pierre Gasly than there ever was with Kvyat, and Kvyat didn't outperform John-Eric Vergne. He shouldn't have even got the seat in the first place, But anyway, I wish Pierre Gasly the best next year. It's going to be a tough one against Verstappen. But, stranger things have happened. He may well go in there and ruffle a few feathers, which I'm hoping for, because I really don't want Red Bull to become another sort of chapter of the Vettel years, if you like, when Vettel was the golden boy, which I know Verstappen is. But hopefully Gasly can get a bit of love as well. He's worked with Honda, so I'm guessing, that connection will go down well, and hopefully he has a good year next year. On to another Frenchman now, Romain Grosjean in 13th place, another one of Toby's favourite drivers. Had a very, very tough start to 2018, and there was even talk of him getting dropped mid-season, which was harsh. Grosjean, barring a weird 2012 where he couldn't race the first lap, I think he's had a really good career, and I think he's unfortunate that he's never got a top drive really since 2013. So he finished fourth in Austria, and that's sort of sparked an upturn in form since then, and he's got his way up into 13th in the championships, and from being dead last, which is quite impressive, you would have to say.
Agreed. Yeah. Again, not really much to add there. I think that ever since his really bad start to the season, brilliant fourth place in Austria, but Grosjean, along with Magnussen, is one of the best on the grid. I think they've got a really good lineup there, something I said at the start of the season, and who knows where they would have been if Grosjean had had a better start. They'd have definitely been battling for fourth with Renault. I know they're 30 points off now. But if it had replicated the fifth and sixth, remember that first race, when they both had that pit stop failure. That would have been 22 points off the dot, and that would have been massive for both of the drivers. That would have put really, if you think about it, at the end of the season, probably Magnussen and Grosjean 7th and 8th in the standings by quite a long way. So I think that it would have continued with momentum from there, and who knows where they would have gone. But Haas, I'm excited about Haas, because I think they could go place again next year. But Grosjean, I think nothing really more to add. I think a solid season after that really bad start to the season, and it was nice to see him get some good points. It was nice to see him have a really good mid-season. But unfortunately, since Belgium, he's not really done too much.
Yeah, I think, again, a little bit unlucky. I think he was disqualified from a 9th place finish in Italy, so that would have been a couple of more points to his tally. But recent Grand Prix, the Haas cars dropped off a little bit. You can see Magnussen's only had 1 points finish since Belgium as well. So, I think Haas are probably getting ready for next year, and hopefully a better start of the year for both of them. And and hopefully we can see Haas competing with Renault for fourth, or will it be Red Bull? Who knows? Anyway, on to the next one. Carlos Sainz, and looking at his season, very consistent. It's surprising that he's down in 12th.
Very good. I mean, well, put it this way, there's less times when he's finished outside the points when he's finished in the points.
Yeah.
And he's had 2 retirements, and 2 of the times finished 11th, twice he's finished 12th. So, Sainz, he's better than Hulkenberg. I knew that sparked a reaction. I think that I'm a bit surprised this year, because I thought that Sainz would go. I did say that he'd go in there and wipe the floor with Hulkenberg, but that was really just to wind you up. But I think Hulkenberg's got the measure of him this year. I was going to say I can't wait to see how they get on next year, but of course they're not going to, are they? Because Sainz is going to McLaren. What a disastrous move that will be. But I feel like they've been very equal this year. I do feel possibly the Hulkenberg experience with the team and the cars helped. I'm not saying that Hulkenberg's got all those points purely because he's got more experience. But
you just don't like Hulkenberg, do you?
No, I'm not fucking bloody praise the bloke. What more do you want?
Praise?
Yeah. I've praised him. I said, well, he's proved to himself a little bit this year. But Sainz got into it very quickly. We'll talk about Hulkenberg later.
Mm-hmm.
He got into it very quickly, as you can see. That massive haul of points all the way up to France. Had a few off races in Austria, Britain and Germany, but he's been very much back to it. And apart from retirement in Mexico, and I'm guessing a retirement in Russia as well, finishing 17th. He must have had a bad race that time.
Yeah, I think so. I think Renault had a pretty bad time there because they both took new engines, I believe. So.
Right. But yeah, it's been very consistent and a drive for the future, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Sainz, I think Hulkenberg and Sainz is one of the strongest driver lineups on the grid for me. And Sainz, has proven himself. He was equal to Verstappen in the Toro Rosso years. He's come into Renault and he's done a really, really good job. And you've just got to look at how close the midfield is from 8th down to 12th. That, Carlos Sainz has a couple of good races. He could well finish 8th in the championship, which would be really, really good for him. He's had a good year. He's got Tom Mayhew. Will Hulkenberg ever get a podium? I hope so, but I don't think so. But yeah, we'll talk about him later. Carlos Sainz, another good year in F1, and I just hope that he can outperform Lando Norris at McLaren and not be embarrassed by him, because if he is, as you say, it could well be the end for Carlos Sainz next year, which would be a travesty for F1. On Esteban Ocon now in 11th, and speaking of travesties, how shocking is it that he's, 50-50 at best to be in the sport next year?
He will be. He will. He'll get that Williams seat.
You reckon?
He will. He'll definitely get that Williams seat. Hence why, well, I'll be proven wrong now, I know, but he'll get that Williams seat, which makes me wonder how Williams are going to survive. But nonetheless, Ocon, again, one of the rising stars. Not really suggested by his move to Williams, granted, but he's better than Perez. Perez doesn't like it, and Perez gets angry. Mm-hmm. That's all I've got to say.
I mean, if you look at the season on a whole, Ocon has barely been at the midpoint of the points, and he's only 8 points behind Perez, I think. Looking at that, and Perez obviously had that third place in Baku. So yeah, I think Ocon again has been better than Perez this season. I think he was last year as well. They obviously don't get on. They frequently have collisions. And I think Ocon is fantastic for the sport. He's quick, he's young, he's fresh, he's a really nice guy. And I think it's a shame that he's going to be at Williams next year. And I say that because Williams have really struggled. I think Ocon would probably be better off with a year out, a bit like Magnussen, and then come in at a better team next year. Maybe McLaren or something, who knows. But
not much of a upgrade.
49 points. He's gonna get past the 50 mark in the last 2 races. He's done really, really well. Good 2 years 2.5 years in F1, I guess, and hopefully he'll continue next season. And if he doesn't, it's only a matter of time before he's going to be in that Mercedes seat. You would say he's proved himself enough already, and could even be Hamilton's replacement in a couple of years. Who knows? But I'd be sorry to see him go. And speaking of sorry to see him go, Fernando Alonso, 10th place, and what a disaster this season has been. It started so well and so promising, and it's been a horror show for Fernando Alonso for quite a while, and obviously he's fell out of love with F1, mainly because of McLaren. I don't know why he ever went back there, to be honest. It went wrong the first time, but he went back thinking McLaren Honda was going to be a good combination. It wasn't. They got rid of Honda for Fernando Alonso, went to Renault, and we all thought it was going to be so promising for Alonso this year. I don't know what Toby's doing, but Fernando Alonso, 10th place. What are your thoughts about his final season in F1?
Well, I've got a routine. I did this back in March, so I better dress up again like I did on the first stream. Thoughts on Alonso's season? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Sorry. As you say, it started so well, didn't it? These glasses actually improved my eyesight, bloody hell. Well, I suppose that's what they're supposed to do, isn't it? He had a very good start, but as you say, it didn't quite come up to what my hopes were, which is 3rd place. Didn't quite get there in the end. But he's fought through it all. He's a trooper, and it's just a shame to see the goat go, really. I'd have loved to see him in that Ferrari, because he'd have wiped the floor of Hamilton, I'll tell you.
You reckon?
He would. Maybe not wipe the floor, but I think he'd have given him a better challenge.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had a title battle this year.
Certainly not since Germany.
Well, we haven't. We just haven't had a battle. We've just had, he'll win one race and such will win the other. I mean, look at me in these glasses. I think they suit me. It's a shame to see him go, but I don't blame him. And wherever he goes next year, good luck to him. Mm-hmm. Should we move on to Magnussen?
Yeah, go on then.
Well, my surprise of the year, Magnussen. I thought at the start of the year it'd be a big year for Magnussen, whether he competes with Grosjean, because he wasn't the best last year, so I seem to remember. He wasn't quite up to Grosjean's level, but he's had a completely brilliant year this year. 5th place in both Austria and Bahrain, and a 6th in Spain and France really propelled him. And all I've always liked about Magnussen is he gives no quarter. He's proper racer, proper sort of James Hunt style, no nonsense. Right. And it's not necessarily what the sport needs for a fan's point of view, but having someone like Ocon and someone like Magnussen, it's brilliant to have. And again, another very solid season. I feel like it's fallen apart a bit recently, but as you say, I think the Haas has fallen apart. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Haas next year, because I reckon that both of those drivers could get in excess of 100 points next year.
Well, that's a massive prediction to make.
It is.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite go that far. I think
I like being extravagant. You should know that by now.
Yeah, I think we're seeing less drivers with 100 points because of the gulf in class between the top 3 teams now and the rest. That Haas are at best going to be 7th most weekends. And I think it'll be very tough for them to finish with over 100 points. But you never know. Haas's best season by far, and Magnussen's been a key part of that. If they had Esteban Gutierrez at the team, Haas would be 9th. Haas would be ninth in the standings because Grosjean would have 31 points and Gutierrez would have none. But no, a good year for Magnussen. Definitely one of the surprises of the season. We haven't quite got to my surprise of the season yet. I don't know where Toby's gone, but here he is. Yeah, we haven't quite got to my surprise yet, but we'll go on to Toby's next favourite driver, Sergio Perez, now in 8th place, the Mexican. Former McLaren driver.
Got his signed picture, Andy, here.
Well, there you go.
Signed Perez picture. That will go in the skip. I can't
I'll have
stand him. I genuinely can't stand Perez. I think he's an arrogant idiot.
PG.
Yeah, exactly. Mind you, he makes the most of a good situation. And that's summed Perez's career up. And he's had some very good results. And it's really contributed to Force India's good season. So, well done, Perez.
Yeah. Obviously, Perez, the one-man show at Force India, that sort of saved them, apparently, from going bankrupt or whatever. Put them into administration, and yeah. Perez again, for me, a dependable driver. He'll always get points, and you know that in a situation he'll maximise it. He's always good on his tyres, and certainly in the Sauber days, got a lot of podiums, and has continued to do that at Force India, and it's a good match, Force India and Perez, and I'm pretty sure he'll see out his days there. He'll never get a chance at a top team again after the McLaren debacle is what I'm trying to say. But a man who I wish had seen a top seat, but he never has done. And I am a fan, I am biased, but I think Nico Hülkenberg has been one of the drivers of the season. Look at the consistency from him. And apart from his retirement, he's only had 3 non-points finishes, which I think is really good.
Yeah, definitely.
What have you got to say about Hülkenberg? Without winding me up, in your honest opinion,
Right, honest opinion, let's breathe in. The stats don't lie, do they? He's outperformed everybody else that's of an attainable level. So fair play to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Renault is the 4th best car. I think the Force India is the 4th best car.
I think the Haas is better than the Renault, to be honest. Or it was. It was at the start of the season. If you look at Magnussen's
results. But then again,
results.
Hülkenberg's benefited at the start as well, from a 7th, 6th and 6th. I mean, that's what?
Yeah, I think Renault were good at the start of the year. Yeah.
But, no, he always does well. He's, again, a good, dependable driver. But, yeah, he's done well. And I think he's consistent. He's a good driver. But Magnussen's better.
Yeah, well, we'll see next year. We'll see next year when Magnussen inevitably drops off because Toby starts supporting him, and
Yeah.
But anyway, it'll be exciting. Renault next year, Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, and I think that'll be a really exciting driver lineup. It'll be cool to see Hülkenberg against a top driver, because I don't think he's ever actually been up against a top driver yet. Certainly not an A-lister, like Daniel Ricciardo.
You forgot someone.
You what?
You forgot someone.
What, Barrichello?
No.
Paul di Resta?
No.
Julian Palmer?
No, not him either. Oh dear, how'd you call yourself an F1 fan? Oh dear. Come on, you need to quit with that name.
What, Hülkenberg versus, he's what, Perez or Sainz?
No.
I don't know who you're talking about then.
Come on, figure it out. Who have his teammates been?
Oh, Magnussen, okay.
No.
Oh no, he didn't partner Magnussen.
He was his teammate in 2013.
Oh, Gutierrez, for God's sake.
There we go.
For God's sake. You are a pillock sometimes, Toby. Anyway, I think it'll be a really good drive lineup for Renault. probably another 4th place finish, and hopefully we see the progression of where they're going to move into podiums and race wins, and hopefully Hulkenberg can have a bit of that. Ricciardo's probably going to be the number 1, although Hulkenberg has built this team from the ground up, really, so I don't think Ricciardo can go in there and expect to be number 1. I think they'll have their chance in the first 6 or so races, and we'll see. But expect good things from Nico Hulkenberg all the time. He's done it since he's come into F1. He's always finishing in the top 10, always qualifying 7th as well. That seems to be his favourite number. You'd think it was his driver number as well, but best of the rest this season, and I think that is another terrific year for the Hulk. Moving on to somebody that has perhaps been the unluckiest driver of 2018, Mr. Daniel Ricciardo, who has had 8 retirements to date. Out of 17, how many races is it? 19 races, sorry. So, nearly half of his races he's retired from, and that is really sad. He had 2 victories in the first 6 races.
Yeah.
This guy was whooping Verstappen at the start of the year. And then, I don't know what went wrong after France. Maybe
Not
even,
sure. Verstappen won a race, didn't he? I mean, that just literally changed the pendulum. I think all I've got to say about Ricciardo is that he had the driver of the season in China. I'm not a big Ricciardo fan.
No, you're not.
That race in China was absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. But Ricciardo is another one, a bit like Perez. He'll always take advantage of a situation where he can win a race. He will, 6, 7, 8 times out of 10.
Fantastic. I remember that one on Bottas, the end of the first section. It's really tight corner. He just did it, and it seemed sublime and perfect, and Bottas couldn't come back. So, he's had a good season despite the retirements, but I still maintain...
Well, if you look at it, when he has reached the checkered flag, he's not finished lower than 6th. Which I know he's in a top 3 car. He shouldn't be expected to do anything less than that.
First race.
Sorry?
Bottas finished 8th in the first race.
Well, there you go. I think Ricciardo is underrated because he's with Verstappen. I think Ricciardo is a terrific driver, and given the right car and the right team, I think Ricciardo could be a world champion. Personally, I know you probably don't agree with that, but I think he's fast, and I think he's just been unfortunately given the boot a bit by Red Bull since Verstappen's been there, and I feel sorry for him.
To this, then?
You what?
Tying your show with Verstappen.
Yeah, here we go. Verstappen fans in the chat, cover your ears because he's coming up next, and Toby's.
You go first.
You want me to go first? Well, Verstappen. Yeah. A bit like the Leclerc situation with Toby, I think Verstappen is overrated. I think he's good, and I think he might well win world championships in the future, but I don't think he's at the level of Vettel and Hamilton personally, and he's done well. I think this season he's proved himself. Last year was a bit up and down for him. The year before, he'd been shoved into a team instead of Kvyat. This year he's proved himself as a top driver. I think next year is going to be a massive one for him because he's coming up against a new boy, Gasly, and if Verstappen gets beat by him, then all of a sudden it all comes crashing down, and he's fast becoming the most popular driver in the sport, which I don't understand. I think he's got a very dry personality. Plain, I think. Dry is probably a compliment. Plain is how I'd say it, and I really don't like him. But fair play to him. He's maximised his results in the second half of the season. He's had the fair share of luck in the reliability. He's had 3 retirements this season to Ricciardo's 8, but I think the tide's turned from last season. But Verstappen a good season in 5th, but I'm probably expecting more from him at this stage, considering he's meant to be, the next world beater. But that's just me.
Can I talk now?
Go for it.
There's one statement I'd like to make, which just shows how good Verstappen is. Lewis Hamilton will retire when Verstappen beats him, and that won't be very far off. Right, I've said that. So next up, I like Verstappen. I think he's a gutsy driver. I think he gives it his all. I'm not saying that any of the others don't, but he seems to be. He's made a few remarks that are a bit daft, but there we go. No one's perfect unless your name's Kimi Räikkönen. But on the whole, he seems a genuine lad, and he's got maturity above his age. Personally, in a lot of respects. He'll moan like a little girl sometimes, but again, a lot of the drivers will. In a situation, Lewis, you could argue, is very, very moany, and he's very, very moany.
I don't think anybody would argue with that.
Exactly. So Verstappen, he's had a good year. Amazing, he's only had 2 wins, and Mexico, he seems to like that track, and the USA finished second. A real good bundle of seconds. I mean, at France, Singapore, and the USA, he could have won that race in the USA, but he had a really bad start to the season, a real bad 6 race, which just shows to me, I think, how well Max has done, because he was really away in those first 6 races, and in fact, looking at it unbelievably, if he'd have got 1 podium, but if we count to maybe, I don't know, potentially 4 out of 6 podiums, potentially 3 at the moment, 3 at least. That adds another 30 points, 40 points. He's already eclipsed Raikkonen and Bottas, and potentially, if he'd have got his act together and Ricciardo won that China race, if he'd have won instead of Ricciardo and a few other results had gone his way, he could have been second in the championship. We would have been.
Well, I think that's a bit far. I think 3rd definitely. I think 2nd.
I don't know though, because if you take it to its extreme, obviously just bear in mind that Verstappen. I know Verstappen took Vettel out in China, but that's against the point. We'll say 3rd then.
But you could say the same about Ricciardo. If Ricciardo hadn't retired from 8 Grand Prix and scored at least 6th to 3rd places, he might have finished 2nd in the championship. It's all ifs and buts. The fact of the matter is, he has finished 5th. Or might finish 4th.
He'll finish 4th. He's gained 18 for 43. He's gained 23 points on Bottas in the last 2 races. That says all we need to say. But should we move on to the 2 Finns?
Yeah, Valtteri Bottas now. 2nd favourite driver of yours, would you say?
Second or 3rd.
2nd or 3rd. And, I've said it since Bottas moved to Mercedes in 2017.
Of course you did. The man that he moved, of course you did, yeah.
No, I did. I said that, he's no Rosberg. And, it always, sort of had that stench of second driver about him, and I think he's played his part well, much like Raikkonen did in the early part of the season, I guess. Bottas is second fiddle to Hamilton, and the difference is Raikkonen can be world class on his day, and I'll say it in a bit. Raikkonen's been my surprise of the season. Bottas, you can argue he has been unlucky in some races. He could have won. He should have won some races, especially Russia, of course. He should have won that Grand Prix. Obviously pulling over for Hamilton. But I just don't think he's good enough to be in that Mercedes seat, because even if he had won, say, 3 races this season, Hamilton has still won, 9 Grand Prix this season. To be winning triple the amount of races in the same car, the same machinery, that just shouldn't be happening, You look at Rosberg, 2014 to 16, an upward trajectory, left on a high, good on him. Bottas will never reach that level. And, I'll say this now, and Bottas will dominate the championship next year or something. But I just genuinely don't think he's got it in him. He was equals with Massa at Williams and a decline in Massa at that. And, we asked it before, how long can Bottas stay in that Mercedes seat? How long before, if Ocon does go to Williams, how long before they swap them? And Bottas goes back to Williams, where it all began. I don't know. I don't see another seat for Bottas anywhere on the grid, to be honest with you.
I think you're bang on. I think you're absolutely bang on. I do think, mind you, though, the stats do warp the points in this example. Because, as you say, you could have put in Austria and Azerbaijan. That would have been 50 more points, which puts him up to nearly Vettel level. Yeah. I know it's still a way off Hamilton, but that would probably be more acceptable. But there have been some weekends where he's been so far off the pace, it's embarrassing. And in fact, it makes, make of this what you will, but just to exaggerate the point, it makes Hamilton look like a god. Yeah. Because Bottas has been so crap, it makes it look like Hamilton's getting 2-3 seconds out of the car. Exceptions to that are obviously Russia, Austria, and Baku. But
exactly.
To be on Hamilton's pace in a fraction of the weekends in the year just isn't good enough.
Yeah,
it's not good enough at all.
Bottas is only good at certain tracks. I think that is what we've established these last couple of years. Bottas,
and even if you're not good at a certain track, Hamilton's got his weaker tracks, Vettel's got his weaker tracks, but they still get a good result. Whereas at
they still finish
tracks,
second.
You can tell Bottas' weak tracks. He finishes 4th and 5th, which isn't good enough for a Mercedes car.
No, it's not. And that's controversial. A lot of people like Bottas, and I get it. He's a nice guy, and he's a good driver, but he's not world class. And if Mercedes were in a tougher championship battle in terms of the constructors with teams, then Bottas just isn't good enough, and that's where Raikkonen is so much better than him, in my opinion, at this current moment. I was saying this to you, Toby, that Mercedes are actually only 55 points ahead of Ferrari in the championship. Now, Hamilton is, what is he? 58 add 6, that's 64. Hamilton is 64 points ahead of Vettel. And yet Mercedes are only 55 points ahead of Ferrari. Now that should say a lot to you. Hamilton is absolutely dominating the championship at this moment, yet Mercedes aren't dominating the constructors. Really, they're still 55.
It just shows it's more between Bottas and Vettel than it is between Hamilton and Vettel. I think that's the point he's trying to make. There's more between Bottas and Vettel at 67 than the 64 between Vettel and Hamilton. That
exactly.
Shows, isn't it?
And if Hamilton is dominating this championship, then Bottas should be there with him. He should be at least close to him, and certainly should have won a Grand Prix. I don't care what you say, he has been unlucky in a couple of Grand Prix, but he's still had 16 Grand Prix to win one. Do you know what I mean? Where luck hasn't come into it, and it's just been his lack of pace. So, a disappointing year for Bottas and a huge year for him next year. Certainly those first 6 races, because if Bottas doesn't perform, how long is it before they stick somebody else in there? And I know Toto's his manager and all of that, which could play a part. I don't know. You what?
Another idiot.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see about Bottas. But moving on to your favourite driver, I'll let you take the reins for this one.
Well, we'll talk about Vettel and Kimi together, just so we can leave the man himself till last. Right, I'm going to make 2 statements here, and I'm getting nervous just thinking of them, because I don't want anybody to get too mad in the chat, but I'm just going to come out with them. A, Kimi Raikkonen is going to go down in my stature, and I think in many people's statures he should be, as a better driver than Vettel. B,
how did I know you were going to say that?
Vettel this year has been terrible. Vettel has gone from here to me, being one of the best of all time, to standard. Vettel has been absolutely crap. he bottled it last year, which I thought, look, it's an anomaly. You know, he had a few bad races, a bit aggressive, like the Singapore crash. But on several occasions this year, he's bottled it. He doesn't have the bottle. That's why he did so well at Red Bull. He can race fine up front because he doesn't have to race. He has to manage the race.
Mm-hmm.
But he can't race for Toffee.
No.
You know, Verstappen in Japan makes a silly collision. Ricciardo in USA, stupid collision, an unneeded collision.
Hamilton in Italy.
Back. Hamilton in Italy. Hamilton in Baku last year. It's stupid. And the only race that he can sort of excuse himself retiring from, which albeit is the only one he's retired from all year, is the Germany race. Because he was a bit unfortunate there.
You think?
I mean, that was an awkward crash. You know, it could have happened to anybody. I feel like Hamilton could have done the same. It could have happened to anyone.
I don't know. In those situations, that is where the best of the best perform.
True.
And I think in that position, you know, that was the turning point in the championship for me. That's
one blip. You can come back from that. You don't finish 64 points down in the championship just because of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I know it was a turning point, but
I said it at the time. I think the British Grand Prix was a turning point where Hamilton came back from the back of the grid to finish second.
Mind you, that showed just how poor the grid are, but we're not going to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, but it shows Hamilton can come through. Vettel has, Hamilton was spun round that day, finished second. Vettel was spun round, 3 out of 5, finished, fourth, sixth, and...
But can we talk about Kimi?
Yeah, go on.
Because this year, more than any ever, I'm really upset they're getting rid of him because he's been better than Vettel. He's been the second best driver of the season, behind Lewis. And I'm just really gutted because, genuinely, he's been really good. I feel like in previous seasons, Vettel's been better. But it might be because Vettel's bottled it. But Kimi's really rose to the pot this year. He won in USA, which I think just heightened that. But on some weekends, I mean, Italy could have easily won. It was just they was on an absolutely awful strategy. And I genuinely think if... I don't take this lightly. If you'd have had a little bit more luck, and if Ferrari weren't such plonkers in their strategy, he could have challenged Lewis Hamilton for the title. And I'm not being soft about that. I'm being genuine about that because I think, as Brundle said mid-season, there's a case that Kimi's been the best driver of the season. Because
I disagree, to be honest.
Apart from Monaco and Canada, he was on the podium every single race he finished. Bahrain, He was on for a second place finish when he killed that. Well, didn't quite. That's a bit strong. When he knocked over that mechanic. I don't know how he retired in Spain, admittedly, but I do think that potentially if he'd have won in Italy, it's all about momentum for Hamilton. I mean, he finished. He won. He won a massive run of race from Germany to Japan, albeit that Vettel won the Belgian race. If Kimi would have won in Italy, and then potentially Verstappen would have won in... Well, actually, let's turn this around. If Bottas would have won in Russia and Kimi would have won in Italy, it turns it right on the head. I know that in the grand scheme of things it's a massive gap, but, as I've just said, momentum's massive with Lewis. And I do think it's always that horrible one more year thing with Kimi. He never has the best start to the season, I always think. And that rules him out straight away. It's not really his fault. He just never seems to get the look at the start of the season. I mean, to be fair, he got 3 podiums in the first 4, but because he retired in 2 of the first 5, it knocked him out of it already, didn't it?
Mm.
But I'm gutted to see Kimi get a save, but I hope he wipes the floor of Giovinazzi and he has a bit of an Alonso end to his career, in that, not that it's an absolutely awful car, but in that he proves himself to be a proper racer, because that's what he goes there for. He goes there for the racing, and it will be a sad day for F1 when Kimi retires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more about the last couple of statements. However, to say he's been better than Vettel is a little bit...
Yes, definitely. Vettel's bottled it royally. Vettel should have had that championship easily.
You see, I think this is where you've just gone completely wrong.
After the British Grand Prix, everyone was saying, well, not necessarily after that, but after the Austrian Grand Prix when Hamilton retired, wow, Vettel's won it.
Why were people saying Germany was a turning point? Because Vettel had got it in the bag.
Yeah, but
and he bottled 25 points on that day, which was the start. It was the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of the end, and Vettel's made, what's the word to use it nicely? He's made so many mistakes. I was going to go a bit more informal. He's made so many mistakes since then, and quite frankly, he deserves to be second. And really should have been punished a bit more and should be in third. But he's absolutely bottled it. He's a lovely chap. He's a lovely, genuine chap, but he hasn't been good enough. And I think that. Yeah, I don't think possibly that you could argue that Kimi's been worse than Vettel. Particularly, all right, we'll twist it. Particularly in the second half of the season.
But even so, I disagree with you. I think Kimi's been really consistent. But, you know, at the end of the day, Vettel's won 5 Grand Prix this year. Kimi, I think... I don't think Kimi's got the edge that he used to have.
I think Kimi could have won 4. He was right behind Verstappen at Austria. You know, Bahrain.
But he hasn't. You know that's.
I know he hasn't.
You know, you can say
that every time.
You know exactly, and that's what I mean. I think Vettel has been the second best driver this year behind Hamilton. Yeah, you know, bar a couple of really poor races. You know, bar a couple of really poor races from Vettel. He has had the better of Kimi mostly, and Kimi keeps bottling it in qualifying, and you know I think that catches up with you. I don't disagree that Raikkonen is a lot closer to Vettel this year than he has been in the past, and Kimi has for me been the surprise of the year because he's had so many podiums, he's looked quick in qualifying at times, but I think if you're looking at the season on a whole, you've got to say Vettel has had a better season than him. You know, he's 60 points ahead of him in the championship. You can't possibly say Kimi Räikkönen has been better than Vettel. I'm sorry, I know you're a big fan of him, and you want to see the best sort of Kimi. And, you know, I do too. I can't stand Vettel, you know, but as a man that hates Vettel and likes Räikkönen a lot, Vettel's been better than him, and I accept that for this season. And you know,
should we move on?
Yeah, you know, you forget Vettel was so far ahead in Austria and
exactly.
Great Britain, you know, and yeah, he's lost it. But I think Hamilton has been incredible this second half of the season. You know, he hasn't been handed it on a plate, bar Russia. You know. You've just got to look at Bottas to say,
crap.
Yeah, exactly. Hamilton has absolutely wiped the floor with the field since he came from 14th to win Germany. You know, he dominated Hungary, all to do with wet qualifying. Belgium, it was all about the start. Hamilton got pole position there, and Vettel slipstreamed him before the safety car was called, and I still remember that. Hamilton could have well won that race. You know, Hamilton had a really good battle with Kimi Räikkönen in Italy. Fair enough, Kimi could have won that race, but still, it's only two races. Hamilton was brilliant in Singapore. Russia, he won by default. Japan, I think Hamilton again was really good.
But that was more Vettel's mistake, I think. I know that didn't Vettel start quite... Where did Vettel start? I think that the big advantage for Hamilton, I always think, in this run is that Bottas tends to qualify second. So there was always that buffer. So really, you know, Kimi and Vettel couldn't get close enough. Whereas in the US, again, Kimi got him right away. I think the start, unfortunately, in F1 now, the start is absolutely paramount. That's proven again in Mexico. Verstappen got, you know, he got it on the start. Ricciardo had bottled it on the start.
Well, Hamilton nearly had Verstappen, didn't he, into the first turn?
He did, but Verstappen was he kept it. But I do feel that this just sums Vettel up. I think if Vettel would have done the same as Verstappen, it would have ended in a collision.
Yeah.
But on Lewis, it's been very tough for me this year because I've had to.
You've come to the realisation.
Swallow my pride a bit, but there's still 2 drivers that Hamilton isn't as good as on the grid. I'm not going to say who they are, but you can work them out.
Verstappen and Alonso, no doubt.
No, actually, no, you're wrong. Stroll and Perez. That's why he left McLaren. You see, he couldn't compete with Perez, and as for Williams, well, he got an offer for them this year, but again, he didn't want to. He didn't go on race Stroll, but I'm not gonna talk about it because it hurts. In terms of it swallowed my pride a bit, but he's had a very good season. You know, I have my opinions about how Vettel's royally bottled it and etc. etc. But Hamilton's been there to pounce when it's counted. It was a little bit like Rosberg in 2016. I know it's not to that extent, but when Hamilton made that mistake, you know, it was mechanical error albeit in Malaysia. Rosberg won, and that ended the championship. But I feel like that was similar in Germany. You know, it very much tied the turn there. But Hamilton's been very good. He's just got on with the business. He's won races where he's needed to, get the point advantage, whilst Vettel's been mucking around, crashing into everyone. And I feel that Vettel could have given a closer fight, definitely. But I feel that Hamilton, ever since... I think Germany's that turning point, and possibly Britain as well. But, again, in France, he won when Vettel crashed. In Spain, he won. In Azerbaijan, he won when Vettel made a mistake in Azerbaijan. I think there's possibly 10 mistakes that Vettel's made this year, which is bonkers.
Hamilton's finished off the podium 4 times this season. And one of them was a retirement.
Yeah. I mean, Mexico, you can't really complain at that one. China, I can't really remember that one too well, but I think Red Bull were better around there and Ferrari.
I don't think Hamilton had a good start of the season at all.
No. I just genuinely think that possibly... Mercedes haven't had as good as car that they've had in previous seasons this year compared to the rest.
Yeah.
So that just shows even better how Hamilton's done. But I'm just going to pop out for a second. I'll be back in a second. You can handle it.
Just to pick up on what Toby said, I think Lewis Hamilton has had his best season to date. You know, in terms of driving at his peak ability, and I think it's great to see that he's, you know, won 5 championships before Vettel, because Vettel won his titles in an era where Red Bull was such a dominant car. You know, Fernando Alonso ran him close in 2012 with a midfield car, you know, which was highly impressive. And you know, Vettel nearly lost that championship, which is unbelievable. 2010, arguably he shouldn't have won it. So, you know, yes, Vettel is a 4-time world champion, but I don't think he's earned it as much as Hamilton has earned his 5. You know, I think, you know, bar the second half of this year and probably the second half of last year, he's had a real fight for his titles. And I, for one, am really happy to see Hamilton get a 5, and you know, he's going to continue into next season providing the Mercedes car is as good, and he's going to win races. He's going to definitely get pole positions and close in on records, you know. I mean, 81 pole positions is mightily impressive. From I don't know, what is it, about 210 Grand Prix starts or something like that? Let's just have a little look. How many?
But he's still 10 off Schumacher's pole record, of course.
According to Andrew Benson, 227 starts, and he's had, you know, in just over a third of his Grand Prix, he's started on pole position, which is impressive. In this era of F1, where you've had Vettel, Alonso, Schumacher, you know.
Good old Lassie with 16, blimey, I didn't realise he got that many.
You know, I was just saying about Vettel, you know, we could quite easily be talking about Vettel as a 2-time world champion. You know, 2010 he shouldn't have won it. 2012 Alonso nearly beat him in a midfield car. Yeah. And you know, the only years he really dominated were 2011 and 13. So we could be talking about Vettel as a 2-time champ, and would people think he was as good as they do?
I think people think that, I suppose that Alonso stood the test of time potentially, but I was just going to say that obviously Alonso, you know, only a 2-time champion, and in my opinion the GOAT. So,
but people think that it's a travesty that Alonso's got 2. I think people think, for an opposite reason, it's a travesty that Vettel's got 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at Vettel, and he's not double the driver Alonso is, even though the stats would suggest that. Alonso should have won 2010. Alonso probably could have won 2012. Should have won 2007. I know that would have devastated yourself, but Alonso could quite easily be a 5-time world champion. Hamilton could quite easily be a 8-time world champion, really.
Or he might not have been in the sport anymore.
Who?
Hamilton. I mean, if 08 wouldn't, if Glock wouldn't have slowed down, and I know he did well in 09 with a bad car, but you just never know, do you?
I don't know. 10 and 12 he competed for the championship. 11 he had a bit of an off year.
Even though Button was better than him, yeah, and Button's a better driver than Hamilton, yeah.
You see, with me at least, I support Hulkenberg. I am a little bit biased.
We're not going to get into it tonight. We can get into it in another podcast.
I'm a little bit biased about Hulkenberg, but every one of Toby's drivers, apparently Van Dorn's one of the best drivers in the sport. The only one he's actually been truly honest about is Bottas tonight, which is says a lot. Is all I'm going to say. But no, I don't think Button is. Button only won a world championship because he had a good car for 7 races.
Yeah, okay.
It's true. When apart from the second half of 2011 when he ran Vettel all the way, I don't think Button ever showed anything to suggest he was on the level of the likes of Alonso, the likes of Schumacher, the likes of Hamilton, in my honest opinion. I think he's better than Vettel, though. If you'll take that one. He's better than Raikkonen.
Button's retired now. Let's not talk about him, shall we?
Yeah.
Mind you, I brought him up, didn't I? Whoops.
You did. You did, yes. Go on. Where does Hamilton rank in your list of?
Well, I don't include the likes of Fangio on my list because I think it's stupid.
I wouldn't include Senna in mine either for the same reasons.
In my list,
because I never seen Senna, so I don't really have an opinion.
No, that's true. For me, so he's first, he's second, he's third, he's fourth. Schumacher's fourth. He's fifth. Sixth, Lewis.
Okay, top 5.
Well, that's a very quick mock up. I think that would change tomorrow, but
go on then. Who's your top 5 at this moment?
So we've got Alonso first,
right?
Prost second, Senna third, Schumi fourth.
If you dare say Raikkonen.
I feel I'm getting a bit of a hunch here. I don't know why I'm going to say this.
Oh god!
Just disregard it straight away. Brundle. Right.
No, seriously, who's number 5?
Brundle. That's what I just said. If I was pushed for an answer, yeah, I'd go Lewis. So yeah, 5th.
Right. Well, I guess that's as good a place as any to stop this review before we lose any more subscribers to the channel. But thank you very much for coming along tonight. It really has been fun going through the 2018 F1 season, and it's been an okay season. Certainly better than last year, in my opinion, and. We've got a lot to look forward to next year, and obviously congratulations to Lewis and farewell to Fernando. Have you got any final words about F1 2018?
Vamos Kimi, I suppose.
Vamos Kimi.
Not going to say anything.
Lewis Hamilton, 5-time world champion, soon to be a 7-time world champion. And on that bombshell, we shall see you next Tuesday. See you later.
Good night.